If you want to get celebrities on your podcast like Beyonce, Elon Musk, or Eminem, there is a specific formula that we use at our studio to do this. And it's led to securing guests like Kathy Ireland, Larry the Cable Guy, Rob Schneider, and tons more. Today, I'm going to show you what I call my laddering strategy on how to secure high-end guests. And it will dramatically increase the odds of your ability to do so. Most podcasters make the same mistake. They start their podcast, they drop 2 episodes, they immediately run out and they're gonna grab The Rock or Mark Cuban, shoot them an email, and they wonder why there's crickets. And the assumption, since they didn't respond, is those people just aren't doing podcast. And that's not true. Celebrities do podcasts all the time, but there's a specific way you have to get to them. But how do you earn that trust if you're a brand new show? This is where almost everybody gets it backwards. Your goal isn't to book the celebrity. Your goal is to become a place where celebrities feel comfortable saying yes to. That's a completely different game. I want you to think of every guest like a rung on a ladder. Now, the first step here is I want you to revert back to our concept video because you need a really good concept. You can't have a podcast on knitting and expect The Rock to come, unless The Rock is actually into knitting, which would be a great way to get him on your podcast. So you start with the best possible connections you already know. These can be local experts, tremendous stories, the best possible guest you can get. And as a side note here, I want to make it a point to say the best guest is not always one with the most Instagram followers. And in fact, several top shows, their #1 performing episode is a seemingly nobody person. So a lot of times, your best episodes can also be just those folks that best connect with your guests. If you do this right via their name or a great story, you now have one piece of social proof and you've made one rung in that ladder. And now guess what? It becomes pretty easy to go to the next step. Now you get a little bit better local celebrity to be on their podcast, a little bit better story, because they see that you have something. They see that you provided some value and impact and you know what you're doing to some extent. And as you can see, you move up to the next piece in the ladder. This can be a retired athlete. This could be the former mayor. Continuing to ladder up your strategy is something that every podcaster should be cognizant of in a guest format. The other thing I want you to think of here is when you do finally connect to, say, a Mark Cuban, the first thing his team is going to do is they're going to go out and look at all the people you've had on your podcast prior. They're going to use this as a way in determining if it's worth Mark's time to be on your show. The other thing this does is it changes the format from which you approach said celebrity. It no longer is, would you just be on my podcast? It's more along the lines of, we've had these 20 guests on our podcasts, X, Y, and Z, and they've all dropped your name. We would love to give your feedback on this particular piece of business, life, psychology. Now you were able to drop several high-name people in a way that adds value and a predetermined framework to what the celebrity is coming to discuss. That is the secret. Every interview, notching up the ladder, is a little bit more credibility for your show. It's called borrowed trust. When guest number 26 saw who guest number 24 was, and guest 24 recognized guest number 18, and guest number 18 recognized guest number 10, your podcast looks legitimate and the ladder builds itself. And the biggest secret of all this, most celebrity emails don't come via cold email. They come via introduction from a guest. Usually this comes up in the end of an interview when you're both excited and they say, you should have so-and-so on your show. Let me make the introduction. They would make a great guest. This continues to evolve your ladder based on your last guest. But this also involves something that you need to think about here. If you have a well-planned, well-structured show that is a lot of fun, then your guest is likely to do that and to decompress. If you are unorganized, if your questions weren't on topic, if you didn't even know what you're talking about, if you didn't allow the space in the room for them to respond, then why would they then recommend you to interview their buddy, Mark Cuban? The last thing I want you to be aware of here is celebrities aren't going on your podcast to be more famous. They've already got that. Chances are, if you're a newer show, it's not even going to bring them a new audience. So what do you have to offer? And that's when you really got to read the room, so to speak. You got to pay attention to what the celebrities are doing. Somebody like Mark Cuban, who was then out promoting his healthcare platform, that would have been a great time for a lot of you that are in the healthcare space and healthcare platforms to be approaching those conversations. Maybe you even interview a host from another show that you saw Mark Cuban was on, because you already know he has the introduction that you're wanting to get. You want to help show them why being on your show is going to work for something that they're interested in. Hey, Mark Cuban, I love what you're doing with the new health platform. I really want my audience to know about it. My audience is die-hard healthcare practitioners. So by and by, don't chase celebrities. Build a ladder. Every single guest can become social proof for the next guest. And before you know it, you can reach the stars and have any guest on that you possibly want. I've always said about podcasting, open a podcast that you're a nerd for the topic. In this example, we've used Mark Cuban a lot, but let's say you're a nerd for computer science, and there is a community for that. Your ladder strategy is not that hard to get to for the Mark Cuban of computer science. I think this is one of the most highly underrated benefits of podcasting. Your ability to get your Michael Jordan in the room discussing the topic that you absolutely love. And with that, folks, that's the end of another episode coming at you live from Business Radio X, Backlot Studios and AZ Podcast Studio. Continue to let us know where you're struggling with your podcast, or if you'd like to come by for one of our free seminars. Keep making good content in the world, and we'll see you in the next one.